giant Apache carried a frozen bride into his barn, then told her, "Tonight you're mine." The storm came without warning. One moment, the sky above the frozen colony was clear and silent. The next, it turned into a wall of white fury. Wind screamed across the plains, carrying sharp ice that cut like tiny blades. Visibility dropped to nothing. Even the strongest shelters shook under its force. People stayed inside. They always did. On a world like Calterra 9, storms were not just weather. They were killers. But there was one man who did not hide. Far from the colony, beyond the scattered metal homes and dim lights, stood a lone structure. It was not a proper house. It was half barn, half workshop, built from old ship parts and thick wood brought from Earth long ago. Inside lived Tehuya. People in the colony spoke his name in quiet voices. Some said he was the last of an old Earth bloodline. Others said he was not fully human anymore. A giant, a warrior, a man who preferred silence over people. Tehuya did not care what they said. At that moment, he stood at the wide barn door, watching the storm. His tall frame blocked the dim light behind him. Snow hit his face, but he did not move. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The storm was not natural. It moved too fast. It changed direction like something was guiding it. Then he saw it. A flash of fire, high in the sky, a falling star. No, not a star. A ship. It tore through the clouds, burning bright orange against the white storm. It spun out of control, leaving a trail of smoke and broken metal. For a second, it disappeared in the storm. Then came the distant sound. A heavy crash. The ground itself seemed to shake. Tehuya narrowed his eyes. He did not think long. He stepped back into the barn, grabbed his thick coat, and lifted a heavy thermal pack onto his shoulders. He picked up a long tool, not quite a weapon, but strong enough to be used like one. Then he walked into the storm. The wind pushed hard against him, but Tehuya kept moving, step by step. He knew this land better than anyone. He had lived alone out here for years. He knew where the ground dipped, where ice cracked, where storms like to trap the careless. But even for him, this storm was different. It felt alive. The crash site was not easy to find. Snow covered everything fast. The burning metal should have been easy to see, but the storm swallowed light. Still, Tehuya kept going. Then he saw it, a dark shape in the snow. Half buried, he moved closer. It was not a full ship, just a broken section. Torn metal, frozen flames. The heat from the crash was already gone, stolen by the cold world. He circled it once, silent and careful. No movement, no sound. Everyone inside should have been dead. But then, a faint signal. A soft blinking light under the snow. Tehuya stopped. He dropped to one knee and began digging with his bare hands. The cold bit into his skin, but he ignored it. Ice broke under his strength. After a few moments, his hands hit smooth metal, not part of the ship, a pod. He cleared more snow away until the shape was visible. It was long and narrow, built with advanced design, far better than anything the colony used. A cryostasis pod. Tehuya leaned closer. There was frosted with glass, but inside there was someone. He wiped the surface with his arm. A woman. Her face was calm, untouched by fear. Her skin looked pale, almost glowing in the dim light. She wore strange clothing, white layered, almost like ceremonial dress, like a bride. Tehuya frowned. This made no sense. Why would someone like this be in a crash on a forgotten world? The pod beeped softly. Warning signs flashed in symbols he did not know, but he understood the meaning. Failure. The system was dying. If he left her here, she would not survive. Tehuya stood still for a moment. Then he made a decision. Carrying the pod was not easy, even for him. It was heavy and smooth, hard to grip. The storm fought him every step of the way. Ice formed over the surface as he moved. The blinking light grew weaker. But Tehuya did not stop. He did not leave people behind. It took him a long time to reach the barn again. By the time he arrived, snow had nearly covered the door. He pushed through, dragging the pod inside with him. The door slammed shut behind him, cutting off the scream of the storm. Inside it was warm, not comfortable, but survivable. The barn was filled with tools, wires, old machines, and pieces of technology collected over years. Some of it was human, some of it was not. Tahuya moved quickly. He cleared a space and laid the pod down carefully. Frost began to melt under the heat lamps above. The pod made a sharp sound, louder now, more urgent. Tahuya looked at the controls. He did not understand the language, but he understood systems. He connected power lines from his own generators. The lights on the pod flickered, then steadied for a moment. The woman inside did not move. Her eyes were closed, too still. Tahuya crossed his arms and watched. Then he spoke, his voice low and calm. "Tonight, you're mine." It was not a threat. It was not ownership. It was a promise. She was under his care now. That meant he would not let her die. The storm outside grew louder. Inside, the pod began to fail. Cracks of frost spread across its surface. The soft hum turned into a broken, uneven sound. Lights flashed faster. Then, a sharp hiss. The pod opened. Cold air rushed out, filling the barn with white mist. For a second, nothing happened. Then the woman gasped. Her body jerked as she pulled in her first breath. Her eyes opened suddenly, glowing. Soft blue light filled them. Tahuya did not move. He watched. The woman looked around, confused. Her breathing was fast. She tried to sit up, but her body was weak. Her hands trembled. She spoke, but the words were not human. Strange sounds. Fast. Broken. Tahuya shook his head slowly. "I don't understand." She looked at him, really looked at him. Her glowing eyes studied his face, his height, his presence. Then something changed. The light in her eyes flickered. Her breathing slowed. She tried again. "You?" The word was broken, but clear. Tahuya's eyes narrowed slightly. "You understand?" She blinked. Learning, her voice was soft, like she was discovering it as she spoke. Tahuya felt something shift. This was not normal, not human. Before he could say anything else, a sound came from outside. Not wind, not storm. Something else. A low hum. Tahuya turned his head toward the barn door. The woman felt it too. Her body went still. Her glowing eyes widened slightly. "They found me." Tahuya looked back at her. "Who?" She did not answer right away. Instead, she looked afraid. Not of him, of something else. Outside, the hum grew louder, closer. The storm, which had been wild and chaotic, suddenly began to move differently, like it was being pushed aside, controlled. Tahuya stepped toward the door, his hand tightening around his tool. The woman whispered behind him, "You should not have brought me here." He stopped. Then he said, without turning, "Too late for that." The hum outside stopped. Silence fell for just a moment. Then a sharp metallic sound echoed against the barn walls. Something had landed. Tahuya opened the door slightly and looked out. Through the blowing snow, he saw shapes, floating, watching. Not human, not from the colony. They had come for her. Tahuya closed the door slowly. Then he turned back to the woman. She met his gaze. Fear, confusion, power, all in her eyes. Tahuya nodded once. Simple, final. "You're safe here." Outside, the storm howled again. But now, it was not the only thing coming. The barn shook as something heavy landed outside. Tahuya stood still, listening. The storm had not stopped, but it had changed. The wild wind now moved in circles, like it was being pushed away from one point, from his barn. Behind him, the woman slowly sat up. Her breathing had become calmer, but her eyes still glowed faint blue. "They are here," she said, her voice clearer now. Tahuya did not turn. "I see that." A low humming sound filled the air again. It came from above, below, and all around. Not loud, but steady, like a machine that never needed rest. Tahuya moved to a nearby table and picked up a small device. He pressed a button. The lights inside the barn dimmed. He preferred darkness. It made it harder for enemies to see inside. "What are they?" he asked. The woman hesitated. "Watchers." Tahuya frowned slightly. "Watchers don't land like that." She looked down at her hands. "They watch. They correct. They remove problems." Tahuya finally turned to face her. And you are a problem? She looked at him again. Yes. The simple answer did not surprise him. Outside, something moved against the barn wall. A smooth scraping sound, like metal touching wood. Tahuya walked slowly across the room and grabbed a long metal spear-like tool. It was old but strong. He had made it himself. He handed the woman a thick blanket. "Stay back," he said. She did not argue, but her eyes followed him closely. The first strike came without warning. A section of the barn wall bent inward with a loud crack. Wood splintered. Ice fell from the roof. Tahuya moved fast. He drove the metal spear forward through the weak point. There was a sharp sound, metal hitting something hard. A strange screech answered him. Not animal, not human. The wall broke open. Something pushed through. It was not large, but it moved with perfect control. A smooth, dark shape, almost like a floating blade with no clear edges. Light ran across its surface in thin lines. No face, no eyes, but it knew where everything was. It turned toward Tahuya instantly. He did not step back. The thing moved first. Fast. Tahuya twisted his body, avoiding a sharp strike that cut through the air where his head had been. The force of it sliced into a wooden beam behind him like it was nothing. Tahuya swung his spear hard. This time he hit it. The impact rang like metal hitting metal. The thing flew back slightly, but did not fall. It adjusted in the air. Learning. Tahuya noticed that. It was studying him. Good. That meant it could be tricked. Behind him, the woman spoke again. They adapt. You cannot fight them long. Tahuya answered without looking at her. I don't need long. The floating machine attacked again, faster this time. It changed direction midair, trying to predict his movement. But Tahuya did not move like a machine. He stepped forward instead of back. The machine hesitated. Just for a moment, that was enough. Tahuya grabbed a heavy chain from the wall and swung it wide. The machine tried to dodge, but the chain wrapped around part of its body. It struggled, its surface flashing with light. Tahuya pulled it down hard and slammed it into the ground. The floor cracked under the force. For a second, the machine stopped moving. Then it started again. Still active, still dangerous. Tahuya lifted a large metal tool and brought it down hard. Once, twice, the light on the machine flickered, then went dark. Silence, but only for a moment. Outside, the hum grew louder. More were coming. The woman stood up now, weak but steady. You cannot stop them all, she said. Tahuya looked at the broken wall. Snow blew inside, carried by the strange moving storm. I don't need to stop all, he replied. He turned to her. Start talking. She nodded slowly. My name is Elora. Tahuya said nothing. She continued. I was not meant to wake here. I was being transported. Safely. Controlled. By them? Tahuya asked. Yes. Then why crash? Elora hesitated. Because I changed. Tahuya watched her carefully. What does that mean? Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly. I began to think. To question. That is not allowed. Tahuya almost smiled. Sounds human. She shook her head. No. Humans are unpredictable. That is why they are dangerous. Another strike hit the barn. Stronger this time. A second machine broke through from the roof, dropping inside with perfect control. Then a third shape appeared at the broken wall. They moved together. Silent. Precise. Tahuya stepped forward again, placing himself between them and Elora. She spoke quickly now. I am a key. Tahuya did not take his eyes off the machines. A key to what? Her voice dropped. To something under this planet. That got his attention. But he still did not turn. Explain faster. They built systems long ago. Systems of control. Something buried deep. Something that cannot be destroyed. The machines moved closer. Tahuya tightened his grip on the spear. And you control it? I help keep it asleep. That made Tahuya pause for a fraction of a second. And if they take you? Elora's answer was quiet. I will be reset. And the thing on the planet? She looked at him. It may wake. That was enough for Tahuya. He made his choice. Then you not go anywhere. The machines attacked together. This time they were faster, smarter. They came from different angles. Tahuya moved like a storm himself. He blocked one strike, rolled under another, and slammed his weapon into the closest machine. It hit, but not as hard as before. They had adapted. One of them cut his arm. A thin line of blood appeared. Tahuya did not react. Pain was not new to him. He grabbed a loose cable from the wall and yanked it free. Sparks flew as live power surged through it. When the next machine came close, he drove the cable into it. Electricity exploded across its surface. The machine jerked violently, its lights flashing out of control. It dropped to ground, dead. The others pulled back slightly. Learning again, always learning. Elora watched everything. Her breathing grew uneven. Her hand began to glow faintly. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly. Ice began to form on the floor again. Tahuya noticed. "Control it," he said. "I'm trying," she replied. Her voice shook. "They are forcing me, reacting to me." The machines moved again, but slower now. Careful. They were waiting for something. Outside, the storm grew even stronger. The ground trembled slightly. Tahuya felt it. Something deep below was moving. He looked at Elora. "What happens if you lose control?" She met his eyes. Fear was clear now. Everything changes. Tahuya nodded once. "Then don't lose." The machines attacked again. But this time, Elora moved. Not fully, not strong, but enough. She raised her hand. The air itself seemed to freeze. One of the machines slowed midair, its movement becoming stiff. Ice formed across its surface. Tahuya did not waste a chance. He stepped forward and destroyed it in one powerful strike. The last machine pulled back. Then, without warning, it shot upward. Gone. Silence returned to the barn. Only the storm remained. Tahuya lowered his weapon. Elora dropped to her knees, breathing hard. "It will not stop," she said. "They will send more." Tahuya looked at the broken walls, the open roof, the cold air rushing in. Then he looked at her. "Good," he said. She blinked. "Good." He nodded. "Now I know what we're dealing with." Outside, something far larger moved in the storm. Not small machines. Something else. Something worse. Tahuya turned back to the door. His voice was calm. "Next time they bring bigger." Elora whispered. "They always do." Tahuya stepped forward anyway. The storm did not slow down. If anything, it grew stronger. Snow hit the barn like waves hitting a ship. Wind howled through the broken walls and open roof. The cold pushed inside, turning the floor into ice again. But the storm was not the biggest danger anymore. Tahuya felt it before he saw it. Something heavy was coming. Not small like the flying machines. Something bigger, smarter, stronger. He stood near the center of the barn, holding his weapon tightly. His arm still bled slightly, but he ignored it. His eyes stayed on the open door. Behind him, Elora struggled to stand again. Her body looked weak, but something inside was growing stronger. Her hands glowed faint blue. The air around her shimmered. "They are changing their approach," she said softly. Tahuya nodded. They already did. A deep sound rolled across the ground. Not from the sky, from below. The floor shook. Dust and ice fell from the ceiling. Elora's eyes widened. They are not only outside now. Tahuya looked down, then back at the door. "Of course," he said. The attack came from two directions. At the same time, the barn doors exploded inward, which shattered. Metal bent. Something massive pushed through. It was not smooth like the smaller machines. This one had shape, structure. For long limbs touched the ground, each one sharp and heavy like metal legs. Its body was thick, covered in layered plates that shifted slightly as it moved. At the front, a narrow head formed, no eyes, but glowing lines that scanned everything. It stepped inside slowly. Each step made the ground shake. At the same time, the floor cracked. A long split opened across the center of the barn. From the darkness below, thin shapes climbed upward, smaller than the first machines, but many of them, too many. Tahuya did not step back. He stepped forward. Elora's voice shook. "This is wrong. They should not deploy this level." Tahuya did not answer. He watched the large machine carefully. It was not rushing. It was thinking, adapting before even attacking. The smaller one spread out across the walls and ceiling, surrounding them. No escape. Good. Tehuya preferred it that way. No distractions. The large machine moved first. Fast. Faster than something that size should move. One of its limbs shot forward. Tehuya barely avoided it. The strike hit the ground behind him, cracking the floor open even more. Ice broke apart. The smaller machines rushed in at the same time. Tehuya reacted instantly. He grabbed a metal hook from the wall and threw it into a hanging support beam. Then he pulled himself upward, avoiding the swarm below. One machine leaped at him. He caught it mid-air and slammed it into the beam. It broke apart in a flash of sparks. But more came. Always more. Below, Elora tried to focus. Her breathing was heavy. The blue light around her grew stronger, but unstable. The cold around her deepened. Ice spread across the ground, slowing the smaller machines, but not stopping them. "I can't hold them all," she said. Tehuya dropped back to the ground beside her. "Don't," he said. She looked at him. "Then what do I do?" He met her glowing eyes. "Choose what matters." She did not understand. Not fully, but she felt the meaning. The large machine attacked again. This time, it did not aim for Tehuya. It aimed for Elora. It had learned. Tehuya moved faster. He stepped into its path and took the hit. The impact threw him across the barn. He crashed into a metal wall, bending it inward. For a second, he did not move. Elora's eyes widened. Something inside her shifted. Not fear. Something deeper. Something new. The machines closed in. Slow. Certain. Victory was near. That is what their logic said. Elora stood alone now. Her body trembled. Her mind raced. She remembered her purpose. To bind. To control. To obey. But then, she looked at Tehuya. He pushed himself up slowly, blood on his arm, pain in every movement. But he still stood, still ready to fight, still refusing to give up. That made no sense. No system could explain it. No logic supported it. Yet it was real. "Why?" she whispered. Tehuya heard her. He wiped blood from his arm. "Because you're here," he said simply. "That's enough." Elora stared at him. Her mind struggled. Her systems tried to correct. But something else grew stronger. Choice. The ground shook again. Stronger this time. A deep sound echoed from below. Not machine. Not storm. Something alive. Something ancient. Elora felt it clearly now. "It's waking," she said. The large machine paused for a moment. Then it changed its stance. It was no longer trying to capture. Now it was preparing for something worse. Tehuya stepped forward again. Even now, even with the ground breaking beneath him, even with impossible enemies around him, he did not stop. That was what humans did. Elora raised her hand. This time, she did not try to control everything. She focused on one thing, the large machine. The air around it froze instantly. Ice formed across its limbs, slowing it down. It tried to move, but not fast enough. "Tehuya!" she called. He understood. He ran forward with everything he had left. The machine tried to strike. Too slow. Tehuya drove his weapon straight into its center with all his strength. The impact rang like thunder. Cracks spread across its body. Light inside it flickered wildly. Then it broke, falling apart in heavy pieces across the floor. The smaller machine stopped. Just for a moment. That moment mattered. Tehuya grabbed Elora's arm. "We move," he said. "To where?" she asked. He looked at the broken floor, at the darkness below. "Down." She froze. "That is where it is." "I know," he said. "That's the problem." The ground cracked open wider. A deep glow rose from below. Not blue like Elora. Something darker. Something older. The machines began to pull back. Not retreating. Repositioning. Waiting. For the next phase. Elora looked down into the opening. She could feel it clearly now. The thing she was made to control. It was not fully awake. But it was close. Too close. "If we go down," she said slowly, "there is no guarantee we come back." Tehuya looked at her. Simple. Calm. Wasn't planning on it. She almost smiled. Just a little. The storm above roared louder than ever. The barn, once strong, now barely stood. Everything was breaking. Everything was changing. But one thing remained steady. Tahuya, standing tall, ready, choosing to fight. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. Elora took a deep breath. Then she nodded. I will not run. Tahuya nodded back. Good. Together, they stepped toward the darkness below. As the ground shook, as the storm screamed, as the machines prepared for what came next, something new formed between them. Not control, not programming, not duty. Choice. The ground beneath the barn broke, open completely. Tahuya and Elora stepped into the darkness below. The storm above faded behind them, replaced by a deep, heavy silence. The air down here was different, still, cold, and ancient. It felt like this place had not been touched for thousands of years. A soft glow came from below. Not bright, not warm, just enough to see. The tunnel opened into something massive. A chamber, so large that the broken barn above looked small in comparison. The walls were smooth, curved, and not made by human hands. Strange lines ran across the surface, glowing faintly like old veins of light. At the center of it all, something moved. Slow, heavy, alive. Elora stopped walking. Her body trembled slightly. That is it, she whispered. Tahuya stood beside her, silent. The thing in the center did not have a clear shape. It looked like a shifting mass of dark energy, wrapped in layers of ancient structure. Parts of it pulsed slowly, like a sleeping heart. But it was not fully asleep anymore. It was waking. Each pulse was stronger than the last. Each movement sent a deep vibration through the ground. Tahuya felt it in his bones. What is it? He asked. Elora answered slowly. It does not have one name. It existed before systems, before control. It consumes order. It breaks structure. It turns systems into chaos. Tahuya looked at it again. So it's bad. Elora almost smiled. Yes. Above them, the machines gathered at the edge of the opening. They did not come down. They waited, watching. Their purpose was clear now. They were not attackers. They were wardens. They were here to keep this thing contained. Elora stepped forward slowly. I was created to maintain the seal, she said, to keep it asleep, to obey the system. Tahuya crossed his arms. And now, she looked back at him. Now I choose. The creature pulsed again. Stronger. The ground shook harder. Cracks of dark energy spread outward from its center, reaching across the chamber floor. Elora felt it pulling at her, calling her, trying to connect. Her body reacted. The blue light around her grew brighter. Unstable. Tahuya noticed. Stay with it, he said. I am trying, she replied. Her voice shook. The system inside her activated. Ancient commands filled her mind. Bind the entity. Restore control. Return to function. She could feel the path. Simple. Clear. If she followed it, she could seal the creature again. Everything would return to order. But something was wrong. She understood now. The system did not care about life. It cared about control. Balance at any cost. Even if it meant removing anything unpredictable. Even if it meant removing humans. The creature pulsed again. This time it moved faster. A long shape reached outward, touching the ground near them. The surface around it twisted slightly. Reality itself seemed to bend. Tahuya stepped in front of Elora. Instinct, always the same. Protect first. Think later. Elora looked at him. This made no sense. He was small compared to the thing. Weak compared to the system. Yet he stood there without fear, without hesitation. She spoke softly. You cannot stop this. Tahuya did not look back. Didn't come to stop it. Then why are you here? She asked. He answered simply. To make sure you finish. That changed something. Deep inside her, the system pushed harder. Obey. Bind. Control. But another thought rose stronger. Choose. The machines above moved slightly. They were waiting for her to act. To return to function. To restore the system. But she did not move. Not yet. Elora stepped forward, past Tahuya, closer to the creature. The energy around it reacted instantly. Dark waves pushed toward her, trying to connect, trying to pull her in. Her body glowed brighter in response. Blue light against darkness, control against chaos. The system gave her two choices. Bind it again, return everything to the old system, or release it, let it fully awaken, destroy everything. Tahuya's voice came from behind her. Calm, steady, what are the options? She answered honestly. One keeps control, one ends everything. He nodded. Then neither. She turned slightly. That is not possible. Tahuya shrugged. Then make it possible. That was the moment. The system had no answer for that. No command. No rule. Because it had never faced humans before. Elora closed her eyes. She reached deeper than the system. Deeper than her design. Into something new. Something she learned. From him. From choice. The creature lunged forward. Dark energy rushed toward her. The chamber shook violently. The machines above reacted, lights flashing rapidly. They detected failure. System breakdown. Elora raised both hands. Not to bind, not to release, but to break the connection itself. Energy exploded outward. Blue and dark forces collided in the center of the chamber. The air cracked. Light bent. Sound disappeared. For a moment, everything stopped. Then, the system shattered. The creature let out a deep, silent pulse. Not of power, but of loss. The connection was gone. No control. No path. No system. It began to collapse inward, slowly, its energy folding into itself, returning to sleep, not forced, not controlled, just left alone. Elora fell to her knees. The light around her faded quickly. Her body shook, weak, almost empty. Tahuya ran forward and caught her before she fell completely. He held her steady. Her breathing was shallow. Did it work? She whispered. He looked at the center of the chamber. The creature was still, silent, dormant. Yes, he said. Above them, the machines went still. Their lights dimmed. Their purpose was gone. The system they served no longer existed. Slowly, one by one, they shut down. The storm outside began to fade. The wind slowed. The snow settled. For the first time in hours, peace returned. Tahuya lifted Elora carefully. She was light now. Too light, but still alive. That was enough. They climbed back up through the broken ground. The barn was half destroyed. Walls broken. Roof open. Snow everywhere. But the sky above was clear. Silent. Calm. Tahuya stepped outside, carrying her. The cold air felt different now. No longer angry. Just cold. Normal. Hours later, Elora opened her eyes again. The blue glow was gone. Her eyes looked human. She looked at Tahuya. You saved me, she said softly. He shook his head. No. He paused. You saved yourself. Days passed. The colony returned to normal. No more machines. No more strange signals. No more storms like that. People talked. They guessed. They never knew the truth. Tahuya rebuilt his barn. Slowly, piece by piece. Like nothing had happened. Elora stayed. Not because she had to, because she chose to. One evening, she stood beside him, watching the quiet land. You changed everything, she said. Tahuya kept working. Nah. She looked at him. You broke a system older than stars. He shrugged. Systems break. Then he looked at her. People choose. She smiled. A real one this time. And on a quiet, frozen world, far from Earth, a human proved something once again. Not with power, not with technology, but with something far more dangerous. Choice.